Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Soon. There we go. Hello, welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor. It's great to be back this week. Darren did a terrific job in my absence. For those of you that don't know, I actually took some time off. Actually had a bit of a holiday away with my wife. We went to Egypt, which was pretty incredible. And like all things in life, there are things that you learn as you go along. Cairo has the incredible rainfall of 1.4 millimeters a year. So you're on the edge of the desert, obviously. But what I really learned was the importance of the Nile, the world's longest river, and the importance of silt. So there's 125 million Egyptians, and they all live within about 3 kilometers or so of either side of the Nile River, and pretty much all the way up and down. The productivity in Egypt to be able to supply that number of people with food and water is incredible. And of course, this all happens as a result of this incredible buildup of silt on either side of the river, and particularly before they had dams, when it would flood, that would be putting more layers and more layers and more layers. So the productivity of the soil is directly related to the organics that are laid on either side of the riverbank. 1.4 millimeters of rain. Can you believe it? All right. Anyway, that's my little learning from having been away in Egypt. We've got a great show for you today. We've got a million questions already come in. We've got the magnificent Holly driving everything, so she's producing. We've got, of course, our fantastic giveaway. It is a $50 gift voucher from Rowan and the team at Garden Express. Remember, this is where you can go shopping 24/7 from the comfort of your armchair. You have it delivered direct to your door. It's pretty remarkable. It's a great company, and of course a wonderful Australian family company. I think 4 generations now. In fact, speaking of that, maybe we'll ask Rowan direct. I think we can we pull him up, Holly? Where is he? Oh, there he is.
Hey, good morning.
Oh, except for I can't hear him. Oh.
Hello.
Have we got sound? Hello, Rowan.
Hi, I can hear you, no problem.
No, we haven't. Maybe we need him to turn on and turn off or something like that. Control Alt Delete. No, don't do Control Alt Delete, Rowan. That's not going to work. We don't have any sound at the moment, so we might just get him to reconnect in, and we'll see how we go. And in the meantime, I'll tell you more about Egypt. Of course, that's home to one of the most amazing civilizations. 5,000 years ago, Egyptians were cutting granite with other rock. I still can't get my head around this. As a landscaper, granite rock is the hardest to deal with. It's to get it pinpoint accurate with the modern mechanisms that we have to be able to cut stone is hard enough as it is. So how they did it back then, I have no idea. I'm just going to quickly say hello to quite a few people. Teller Lee, we haven't seen you for quite a Teller T. We haven't seen you for quite a long time, actually. Lovely to see you. Jeanette Fenton, good morning. Hello, Fiona. Where else? Val Denton. Hello, Val. Gee, there we go. Val was saying that we can hear Rowan. Rowan, are you there?
I am here. Good morning.
Is it me?
Yes.
Maybe it's me, Rowan.
Okay.
There we go. That's better. Sorry, it is me.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really well. I was on the other side of the screen a second ago. Now I'm on this side, so I'm a bit thrown, but it's all good.
That's okay. That's Holly messing with our minds. Hey, just out of interest, what's the weather like in Melbourne at the moment?
It's sunny today, but it's definitely cooling off. I've got my heater on in the office, so I do have my T-shirt on, but jacket weather outside for sure.
Everybody,
Not much rain, but very cold.
When they see you, David, or Chloe, they sort of their imagination of your office is sitting on the top of a 7-story building, looking out over the spectacular mountainside around the outside of you. But the reality is, you're down in the dungeon, aren't you?
I am, yes. I don't quite have I have the magical throne room like Coming Dave, but it's still quite nice.
It's you're actually down in the heart of the operation. And for people who live in Melbourne, they can actually pop in and see you guys. You've got a retail shop, haven't you?
Yeah, we do. So it's open Monday through Saturday, Saturday until 2:00. So obviously Saturday morning is the busiest time for the nursery, people up in the hills having a drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to pop in and say hello for sure.
And, MIFGS is obviously one of those events where people get to see you, masses of people. There was 120,000 odd people went to MIFGS again this year. And they get to see the very best of Garden Express there. You had all your show bags and everything else, but they're all gone, right?
They are all gone, but I think maybe next week or the week after, we've pulled together another one just for Guru's viewers. So that'll be on TV maybe next week. I'm not 100% sure. It's either next week or the week after. Same great value, same great product. Basically, actually, it's a little bit better than the one we had at MIFGS. So you guys are going to want to get in quick on that because the stock numbers will be limited.
Okay, no problems. Well, that's a pretty good one to look out for. There's a lot of good plants going through you guys. The Daphne recently still got people talking about it. Have you got any of those beautiful Daphne left?
There's some pink, but none of the white. The white has sold out, but there is still a small number of the pink plants. So in a 140 ml pot. So if you jump online today, you should be able to get your hands on those. But stock is running out of those, and most of the stuff that we're featured on Gurus this year. I know some of the lavender that we had maybe last week. We've got some of those packs, which are great little starter packs. So there's some of those still online. But anything from further back is kind of, as it always does, Trev. It's sold out already.
Sold out. This week we've got the lavender is a good example where you also came up with a super special offer on that amazing lavender from Doom and Orange. That funds from that went to a very important cause, Beyond Blue.
Yes.
And it's great to see that did so well. And I'm sure that you're probably madly growing more of them for the springtime, because now's the time to get your lavender into the ground and obviously have them ready for springtime. But the thing that I'm really I'm really proud to be associated with you guys with is the Mother Halo cyclamens. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so we've got a cyclamen. There's 3 colours. So we've got the red one that I'm showing you now. We've got a pink one and a white one available. Proceeds of this one, or part of the proceeds of this one, goes towards Motherless Daughters Australia, which is one of the only organisations that is sort of a support mechanism for young women and children after the loss of their mother. So it's a really nice a charity that supports and puts on programs and basically brings people together that have suffered a loss of a mother, help them get through it, and not feel so alone that often they do when you lose your mother.
Rowan, you guys, you're a family business, and you're very much, you've got your own little village there, and there's a lot of people work at Garden Express, but they're all part of the extended family, if you like. But what's really lovely, I think, is the fact that you guys do some really good things, good things for the community. And this is another really good example. Cyclamen, everybody knows cyclamen. And look, a lot of garden centres, etc., will be selling them out there, but not everybody's doing this. This is really special. Now is the time to be getting cyclamen into your house, because they really are a house plant at the moment. But it's the cool weather that really gets them growing so well. And of course, it's one where there's a super special deal. So let's talk through the deal again. So it is, you've got the pink, the red,
and white,
and the white.
Yep. So the normally the 100 pot like you're seeing there, or like you're seeing there on screen,
Yep.
they're normally $17.90.
Mhm.
We've brought them right down to $12.90, so it's a saving of over 25% for Guru's viewers, and obviously part of the proceeds go back towards that wonderful charity that we spoke about.
That's cheaper than what you can, like, you're cheaper than what you can buy, you know, in some of the big mass merchants at that price, and you're still giving proceeds towards the charity as well, Ryan. That's a sensational deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to us, as we've discussed in the past, it's important to us to be able to give back to some of these charities. Mother's Halo, obviously, Beyond Blue, like you mentioned, and some of these charities that are pretty prevalent in our society at the moment. You know, yeah, like I said, it's important for us to be able to, you know, chip in a little bit and help some of these organisations.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely terrific. Now, of course, for people to be able to take up this offer, what have they got to do?
Jump online. As usual, we've put a nice big banner up there on the homepage. Takes you straight to the Guru Cycleman section where the three options are there. Look for Trev's face. That's one way to find it. Yeah, pink, red, white, $12.90. Save 25%, and part of the proceeds go towards Mother's Halo, which is great.
Just how far away is it, Holly?
Not this weekend, but next.
Holly's looking forward to it. It's next week.
And
The only reason I know is it's actually my birthday as well.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, we'll have to celebrate your birthday.
So I have
next
to
week
share
on
it.
this
I have to share it. Yeah, I have to share it, but that's okay. That's not so bad.
That's really, really cool, mate. Well, listen, I think everybody, please jump on. This is a good charity. These are beautiful plants, and I would get one of each and maybe gift a couple to some people that you love as well, because look at them. They're just absolutely gorgeous. The quality of those plants, by the way, mate, is sensational. That's really as good as you get them.
Yeah, really, really nice. And these ones were not flowering probably as much as maybe 10 days ago.
Yep.
And obviously with a bit of cold weather here in Melbourne and you know, looking after them, they've popped out in flower and looking really amazing. There's a lot of bud in there as well.
Look, I'm a pretty proud parochial West Australian, and I think there's a lot of things that we do pretty well over here. But when it comes to cool climate plants like cyclamen, you don't get them any better than the ones that are growing in Melbourne. They're always so hardy.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think each state's got some benefits of growing certain things, but yeah, definitely things like cyclamen and some of those other plants that are thrive in cooler weather. We do really well.
Yeah, actually, mate, we have got so many questions coming through. I'm going to need to move on. I know Jeanette Fenton said my nan grew a few colours of cyclamen. They looked amazing. I've grown them both inside and outside, but murdered every one of them. No idea what I've been doing wrong. I know they die down, but mine were very dead. Just a little tip on cyclamen and growing them. So this is the time of the year to bring them indoors and to have them in the house. But once you get to springtime, you actually plant them out under the shade of trees. Naturally, they would grow in the ground, and any leaf litter that sits on top of them, when they die down, it protects the bulb. Come sort of probably around about the second week of autumn, foliage starts emerging, and as the weather gets cooler, that's when the flowers are really triggered and you really start to see them. So they do survive in the garden, and particularly in cooler climates, they do really well. A little harder here in the west or up in Brizzy, but certainly Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, you guys, you can get them to grow in the garden after they've been inside the house, and that's the great thing about this. Thanks, Jeanette Fenton, for that, and thanks, Rowan, for your time again this morning.
Always a pleasure, mate. Look forward to catching up again soon.
All right, good stuff, mate. All right, take care. And isn't he a good guy? They just such a lovely family company. It's been a pleasure working with them over the years, and their support of the Garden Gurus Live of this session each week allows us to get a little team together to be able to talk to you, which is absolutely sensational. So we're really appreciative. If you get a chance, this is a great cause, a really good cause, and really beautiful plants, as you saw. Should we be going to a video? Yeah, I think we'll go to a quick video. Very special happening here at the Melbourne International Flower and Garden Show that goes beyond just the great feeling that visitors have when they're walking in amongst the beautiful displays and plants. And it's this sense of community the garden industry has as part of the broader community, where it doesn't just green, it also helps many worthy charities. There's one that the guys at Garden Express, your one-stop garden shop, are working with that really deserves a bit of recognition. The Mother's Halo cyclamen is a collection of colourful flowering plants, and they're stunning for bringing colour inside your house. Garden Express are giving proceeds from every plant sold to support a very important organisation. Motherless Daughters Australia is the only organisation that's dedicated to supporting young women, young girls and children whose mothers have passed. They do some amazing work, and part proceeds from every plant sold will go towards supporting it. To get your very own cyclamen halo pink, red or white in 100mm pots, jump online to Garden Express and pay a bargain price of just $12.90 each. That's a saving of over 25%. They're actually a fantastic plant and an incredible deal. That they're as cheap as you'll ever get them. So well done. You know, it's one thing I should say before I get answering your questions, and it's very important because across the country things are changing. It's drying out in the north, and of course in the south we are starting to see rain in places that hasn't had it. Like Perth hasn't had any real rainfall for 6 months, but we got about 10 mils, and things are overcast today. It's looking a little bit bleak out there, but my goodness, did we need it? I was looking at I've got a creek that runs through the front of my property. You've probably seen it on the show, and there's a big pond, for a better word, a bit of a dam there. And this morning I was looking, and there's these beautiful silver perch, about a kilo each, all swimming across the top of the water, gasping for air. So we had to put a pump in there just to get a bit of oxygen still going in. So we could still do with a lot of rain at the moment here in the West. We are so far behind. We're seeing rapid death of long-term existing trees here. It's really concerning. In fact, I had this massive tree in my sort of front yard, I suppose, the biggest tree we have on the property, a big red gum, come down whilst I was away in Egypt. And we have a landscape company, and the guys very kindly cut it up. It kind of landed on my mum's car, believe it or not, broke her back windscreen, which was a bit of a disaster. But one of the interesting things about the tree is when I took a look at it, this tree's probably the best part of 100 years old, I would say. There's probably 60 tonne of timber in this tree. And when I had a look at the base of it, it was literally the root system was gone. It had dry rot all the way through. And this is a common problem with larger trees when you go through very stressful periods. It leaves them vulnerable to these kinds of infections. Dry rot is actually a fungal infection, and it had pretty much killed off the base, the root system of the tree. And this enormous tree came down and flattened my timber shed, and it's going to be carved up and sadly put to one side as firewood. And it's a big loss when you lose a big tree, but when you have stressful conditions like we're seeing in the West, there is a lot of very stressed native plants out there, yet alone the exotics that didn't evolve in this environment. So I have a funny feeling we're in for a few years of possible drought, I would think. That presents some new challenges, and there's certainly a lot of rethinking going to need to go on, because Perth has Australia's lowest level of tree cover, and we need to increase that. So losing a lot of trees through stressful environments like this is not a good thing. So I'm going to be planting a few extra ones in my garden over the winter months. Most of them will probably be edible, because you know that I love my edibles. But I do have a plant of the week that I'm going to talk about a little bit further on. First up, however, I think I probably need to get to all of your questions, because there are so many of them, and we are 21 minutes into this show. Where do we go? this is going to try and catch up with some of the stuff that you've put through during the week as well. Rosalie Blackwell sent a picture of her backyard and asked if we were able to help her fix it. And we can certainly give you some ideas. You can see it's a blank canvas, Rosalie, isn't it? And it's really the most important thing at this point in time is to work out what you want to do, what type of garden you want to have, get a plan in place, start working out the types of trees and where they'll sit, whether you want lots of lawn or whether you want to have edibles. You need to plan that out. It needs to be drawn out on paper, and you need to work out your dimensions. That's a very important thing before you do anything else. The next two things are vitally critical to any garden, and that is, one is you need to make sure that you've got a really reliable water supply, whether that be a bore, good irrigation system connected to the mains, or alternatively, whether you can use rainwater or recycle grey water or black water or whatever you've got to do. But you need to make sure you've got a good water supply. And the last thing is soil. You need to work on the soil and improve the quality of the soil. Those are the three bits of advice I can give you, because with the Garden Gurus TV show, we're about solving day-to-day problems, about making gardening easy, and about introducing you to innovation, whether it be in plant breeding, new plants, whether it be new technologies that are making gardening more environmentally friendly, or getting rid of things like chemicals and bringing in natural solutions. And that's what we're about, showing you all those things just to make gardening easier and a little bit more enjoyable. So hopefully that helps, Rosalie. Shelley Hockey, you're in Perth. My cyclamens self-seeded by the hundreds and they don't go dormant. Well done, Shelley. That's awesome. You have got the soil right, because when the soil's right, they will seed, they will pop up, and they'll come back up year in, year out as well. That's a little bit of bragging, Shelley, but that's really got down to right moisture level, right organic content in the surface of the soil. Glenn Miller's in the Gold Coast. Glenn is a great friend of ours. He's got a great question too. A 4-metre bougainvillea in the garden is sitting there and it's looking a bit scrappy. Is there any reason not to cut it back to about 2 metres in wintertime? Glenn, good question. When they're that big, you can cut them back. You can cut them back any time of the year. Wintertime's probably, when it comes to tropicals, it's probably the one time you don't really want to cut them back too hard. But when it comes to bougainvilleas, they're so hardy. And when it's at 4 metres, it's actually got itself to the point where it's fully established and it's not going to be a problem for it to live and grow happily. So that should be fine. Talati, hello. What have you got for us? You've got eremophilas. Will they grow by cutting, and when's the best time to take them? My maculata's in flower at the moment. Now, eremophilas are, in fact, a West Australian native plant predominantly. They grow, they actually grow in sort of the Midwest predominantly, in the southwest corner. They are a great plant and a really tough native plant. Once they get established, they're almost indestructible. However, good news for you is they do grow really, really well from cutting, and now is the time, well, the next month or so is the time to start taking those cuttings. And they're little tip cuttings, so you only want them about that long. Strip off the foliage at the bottom and pop them into a good cutting mixture. So one of those propagation mixtures that you can get. I know the guys at Scott's have got a fantastic one in their Osmocote range. So you might want to think about that. Eremophilas, they are more often than not, they're known as emu bushes, which is really because you will often see emus in amongst them. They're in that part of the world. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I don't know if you know eremophilas, but have a look the next time you're in the garden centre, or Google them if all else fails. Christine McCormack is another great friend. It's great to be back. Thanks, Christine. My avocado tree did not fare well over the recent heat. And Paul, you've been in Perth as well, and we're all experiencing this. Poor rainfall, and it's really suffered. Half the branches look to be dead or dying. Have they died? Can I cut these back? I was going through mine yesterday, and I've got burn on top. So literally it's gone black on top of some of the branches. But the branches themselves are actually starting to regrow, and there's new growth coming through now that we're getting cooler conditions, higher moisture content levels in the soil. So I wouldn't do anything other than give them a feed at the moment, Christine. If they're really stressed, a little bit of sea salt will go a long way. It's always so good because it's stimulating root growth. Should also mention to you all that if you're tuned in through Facebook, that's fine. But a lot of people tune in through YouTube because we're live streaming through YouTube as well. And Wendy Fox is in Brisbane. She's tuning in exactly through that. I was wondering if you could help, Trev. What causes rust disease in frangipani trees, and how do I treat it? I've got 8 trees and every one has the disease this year. And it's really quite common in Brisbane, and it's got something to do with high humidity levels. Rust is a disease that if you're in a drier climate, you might see it on things like hollyhock and those kinds of plants, snapdragons and so on, but not usually on frangipani trees. So the drier the conditions, the less likely you are to get rust. The more humidity, you can get it. And once it's on one tree, yes, it'll move through all the rest. You do have to treat it. There are a number of different fungicides that are really quite effective. And what I would suggest is that you get 2 that both are listed to treat rust. You'll get them from your local garden centre. Why 2 and 2 different ones? Well, the reason is that rust can build up a tolerance to particular types of treatment. So, for example, if you use mancozeb, you'll find that if you just use that, it will have effect the first year. Second year, if it starts to come back, it's probably not going to be as effective because the rust actually seems to evolve and adapt to that and not be affected quite as badly. So what you want to do is get 2 of them. There's a couple of different, as I said, there's about 4 options out there at the moment in retail garden centres. Grab 1 of each and then spray one week, leave it for a couple of weeks, then spray the next one, leave it for a couple of weeks, spray the first one, and one more time with the last one, and you will clear those trees of rust. Of course, we are heading into the end of the season, and if you've got frangipani plumeria acutifolia, that's the one with the pointy leaf, not the obtusa, the evergreen one with the rounded leaf. If you've got that, then you are going to find it'll drop its leaves. The one with the rounded leaf, obtusa, does need to be treated this time of the year because unfortunately that is an evergreen. It doesn't lose its leaves, and that rust will stay on them and will affect the tree's health. So I hope I explained myself. Did that make sense, Holly?
Yes.
Yes, it made sense. So that's good. As long as Holly understands it, we're heading in the right direction. She did say earlier on that she's got a bougainvillea in her garden that is indestructible, and that's how bougainvilleas generally are. They are an amazing plant in most climates. And it's really interesting when you see long dry periods like we've had here in the West, and there's only certain plants that tend to survive, and bougainvilleas are one of them. In fact, the more stress sometimes they get, or the more stressful the conditions, the more interesting it is because they produce more flower bracts and they're more colourful, which is quite remarkable, but they're at her very best. All right, let's keep rolling on. Tina Weber, she sent a message in earlier this week trying to get her hands on the pink Medellina magnifica. Now, I'm trying to think of the common name of that. It's a beautiful plant. It's a tropical plant. I'm assuming, Tina, that you must be up. It will grow in Sydney, but really it's kind of more in the tropics. It really loves those tropical conditions. And really it's only going to be specialised garden centres in that environment. It will not grow anywhere in the south. I have seen it in garden centres in places like Melbourne, but they've been imported down and they're not a long-term proposition unless you've got a glass house. If you've got a glass house, if you've been to Sproutwell and you've got one of their amazing glass houses, you will be able to grow this plant, this beautiful tropical plant, Medellina magnifica. And it's called the chandelier plant. Yeah, sometimes it's called that, and there is another name for it as well, but this brain's still a little bit on holiday. But thanks very much, Leah Robinson, for giving me that one too. Dale Riley, you sent us some photos. Hello, loved the show. Thank you very much. Really wanting to make this small area, special area. If you could help me with a shaded area, it gets very hot. Let's have a look at the photos because, so it's one of those interesting spots. You've got a lot of steel on that fence, and you've got the brick wall on the other side. And I'm hoping that that's green grass that's on the ground there. If it's artificial grass, you've really got a heat sink through there. What you've got to do in an environment like this is get some really tall upright plants. And it's a really interesting sort of environment that you're trying to do. Interestingly enough, big gardens tend to be easier to landscape. The smaller the garden, the harder the job is to landscape. So it depends on what kind of garden you really want to have here. But you could, for example, use a few palms down here. And I noticed you've got a palm in the foreground there in that white pot. Down around the outside to try and bring some shade in. What you've got to do is try and shade this down a little bit and cool it down, and that's the way you'll be able to grow things underneath it. Then it does look to me like everything you grow there needs to be in pots. And just I've just literally finished filming my last stories for the autumn series of the Garden Gurus at my place yesterday, and what I was showing was a whole range of beautiful fruit trees, things like avocados, things like mangoes, some beautiful citrus actually, and some what we call column or polar apples. And they're all in pots on my deck. My deck gets really hot during the summer period, but these guys, they're starting to shade it down as they're growing and getting bigger. And of course, the benefit we have is that we're able to pick fresh produce on a regular basis from this, what is a quite small area, not dissimilar to what you've got there. So have a bit of think about some of the pots and see whether that might help a little bit. All right, Dale, hopefully that was a help. Leah Robinson, hello. My newly planted black Russian tomatoes wilting despite regular watering and sea salt. Is this likely a virus? It is absolutely likely to be a viral infection or alternatively a fungal infection, because I've got the same thing. So I've got some, not black Russians, but I've got some little black cherries, and unfortunately some of them are not happy. And that is a soil-borne disease that once it gets in, you just can't plant anything in that same soil again. You need to move to a new fresh place or grow them in pots in fresh soil because you're not going to get rid of it. It takes usually 2 or 3 years before that'll burn out in the soil and you can start to reuse that same spot. But this is why we have this thing we call rotational planting. So you never plant in the same spot, the same species. In the second year, you'll find you have inherent diseases that remain in the soil. So hopefully that is of help. Okay, let's have a look at our photo video. So we show you how to upload photos, and then I'll go to my plant of the day. Thanks, Holly. Gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo, well, simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer. All right, so make sure you're posting those photos. Do us a big favor, would you? We want as many people to be engaged and part of this as possible. Share this link with your friends. Share it and tell people about it, because we're here to help with the garden, and that's really what we want to see. So the more people engaged, the better it is. Okay, you're wondering what this is, aren't you? Take a look at these beautiful flowers. What do they look like, particularly when they're like, I'm just going to try and show you that. So what do they look like there? They look like snails. And that's how it got its name, the snail creeper. Now, this is probably my favorite climbing plant. It is absolutely gorgeous this time of the year. And the fragrance, Holly, I think, alluded to it earlier on when she posted just prior to the show starting. This has got the most intoxicating, beautiful fragrance. It is just magnificent. So I've got it sitting in a large pot, and that they grow up on a frame. So I've got a blisk frame in there. It's completely wrapped around the frame. It's completely full of beautiful green foliage, and now it's completely full of these. So I've just moved the pot next to my front door, so you're getting this amazing perfume as you walk in. Now, it's called Phaseola caerula. It is the snail creeper, and there's 2 types. There's this one, the fragrant one, and then there's another one that's a little small version of this flower, and it's not fragrant. So you need to check out your local garden centre and see if you can get it. I was saying to Rowan that Garden Express need to get their hands on this one, because honestly, every garden should have it. It is absolutely gorgeous. How does it smell, Holly?
Kind
How would you describe it?
of jasmine-y.
Jasmine-y? Yeah.
Mm.
It's got a bit of a jasmine
I
sort of
love it.
fragrance
I
to it.
really like it.
It's absolutely gorgeous. So, yep, that's my plant of the week. That is the snail creeper. And make sure you get the big double one with the fragrant flowers. It's particularly good. And as I said to you, if you don't have a lot of room, you can grow them really well in a large pot. But if not, of course, you can always, if you've got a fence or something like that, cover the fence. It'll smother the fence. And this time of the year, the fragrance, everybody will love you for it because it is just gorgeous. Okay, let's keep rolling because we've still got so many questions and we have 23 minutes to go. Leah came back and said, thanks, Trev. I'll plant something different there as we've been growing tomatoes in the same spot for a couple of years. That's what the problem was. So rotate your crops, really important, folks. Good lesson learnt there, Leah. That's pretty important. Jeanette Fenton is in Glenorchy in Victoria, working on a huge veggie garden with wicking beds made from IBCs. Okay, so that's those plastic containers. Hoping to start adding soil this Sunday. How important is it to make sure the pH levels are correct for each veggie type? And is it true that you can maintain 2 different pH levels and 1 IBC for 2 different veggies? No, I don't believe it is true because, look, your soil pH, it's, you know, so pH, does anybody know what pH stands for? It's really... no, it's not phosphorus. Holly's doing a really good job, but we've still got some work to do with her, that's for sure. pH is, and it's spelt with a lowercase p and a capital H, which might give it away, but it is the potential of hydrogen. That's what it's abbreviated to, and it counts the number of hydrogen molecules. And the more that you have, then the more acidic it's going to be, and the less, the more alkaline. So, you know, we have that scale 1 to 14. What is your pH? Do you know what your soil pH is? It should always be around 7. If you're around 7, you're going to have full access to the full spectrum of nutrients, which is what is affected by the scale. So the more acidic it becomes or the more alkaline it becomes, for example, the less iron you'll have available, the less magnesium you'll have available, and that causes that yellowing in leaves. So it's why pH is so important. But honestly, the variance for veggies, most veggies are really happy in a 6.5 to 7, so maybe slightly acidic, but you don't need to try and maintain 2 different levels of pH. It's just not necessary, so don't worry about that. Casey Tang, can you grow the snail creeper in Melbourne? Absolutely, Casey. It grows really well in Melbourne. In fact, Rowan was telling me from Garden Express that he's got one in his garden. So, and I think he's in slightly sort of cooler conditions than Melbourne Central. So, yeah, that's probably a really good indicator that it grows exceptionally well in Melbourne. Mim Simpson, you won the Garden Express voucher last week, didn't you, Mim? Well done on that. Is there any spray that'll kill the Mickey Mouse plant? Ochna. It's taken over your garden. This is a problem with some plants, is that they actually adapt very quickly and they start to move through pretty quickly and start popping up everywhere where you don't want them. And that's what a weed is. A weed is only a plant that you don't want in that particular spot. So the solution in this particular instance, they do get taken out by pretty much most of the herbicides. It's not suckering up, it's seed that's germinating. So what you want to do is try and contain that particular garden bed. Simple thing to do, if you just got little seedlings coming out, put a nice big thick layer of mulch down. If not, you can use one of those herbicides, whether it be Roundup. There's different formulations of Roundup now, it's not all glyphosate. And that can knock it down really quick and give you immediate control. But there are other opportunities out there like Slasher as well, which uses a type of what they call pelargonic acid. It's a chemical that's derived, and acid gives its name away. It's a chemical that's derived from pelargoniums, from geraniums. So yeah, anyway, that's probably what I would recommend. I'm going to come all the way back here. We are going to come all the way back here to Rolling Stone. No, we're not. I'm going to just, Tina Weber asked, she'd still like to get her hands on that Medellina Magnifica. how difficult would it be to get one from the eastern states? So actually, I think Tina's over here in the west by the sounds like. You can import them. It is possible. Again, it's companies like Garden Express that you might want to try and see if they can't order some in for you. As I said, I have seen them in Melbourne, so they're obviously being brought into Melbourne, and Garden Express are able to ship all over the country. So Tina, maybe you want to contact Rowan and just send them an email and see whether they're able to assist in some way in getting your hands on Medinilla magnifica. It is a magnificent plant, and there is another name for it, and it's very fitting, but it's not sticking in my head. No, it's not the one. It's another name, and it'll come to me. No, it's not it. It's not it. Anyway, we're trying to. I'm getting prompts here for this old mind of mine, but it's still not working too well. Kerry is from Rollystone. Rollystone is in the Perth Hills. She's got two very small frangipanis in one garden bed last winter. Both lost their leaves and rotted at the bottom. Pulled them up, cut them off, replanted them, and they've had leaves over. One had leaves over the summer, the other didn't. Should I pull the leafless one up, cut it off more? It's probably dead. If it hasn't produced leaves over the summer, it's probably dead. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't help you any more than that, Kerry. I live in the hills as well. We're a few degrees cooler than the sandplain, and I'm really, honestly, only able to grow the white really well. So it does the colour of the flower determines the vigour of the plant, and the white ones are really quite vigorous. So, yeah. I'd start again with the second one and again, cuttings, but now's not the time to be putting cuttings into the garden. You really want to put plants in that have got roots on them, because as we go into the winter, they will go dormant. That's what they do, unless it's the evergreen one. Remember I told you, acutifolia is one of the plumerias. That is the one that goes dormant during winter. It's deciduous. It drops its leaves. Those leaves have got a point. So this is how you can tell the difference. They're a long leaf. They've got a point on the end. That's the acutifolia, that description in the species. And the other one is called obtusa. Now that's the evergreen one, and that's got a rounded leaf at the end. So it's not pointy at all. If you're not sure which one you've got, hopefully that helps. Okay, Lynn Menenju Ryan. I hope I got that right, Lynn. How are you? I'm not sure where you're from. Please, folks, let us know where you're from. It does help a lot. Is there anything I can do to stop scale coming back year after year on my gardenias? I've cut them right back and used white oil, but every year the scale attacks them. You know what that suggests? Two things. One is that there's something nearby that has scale all the time that's not being treated. That is, no, I didn't. I will do that. But that is most likely what's causing this problem, Lynn. The second thing is they're being farmed by ants. So ants and scale live in what we call a symbiotic relationship. One supports the other. Oh, Gold Coast, you just told us that. That's great. Gold Coast is a perfect environment for scale and also for ants. And they'll be working together. So the white oil will help smother the scale, but the ants will keep bringing new scale in from wherever that other plant is that's got scale. So you want to have a hunt around and see if you can find it. Then treat that one. But one thing you can do to keep the ants away once you've treated the scale is, and you just want to get yourself a little bottle of it, and it's quite cheap to do, and it's not a chemical or anything. It's talcum powder. So you put talcum powder in a little ring around the base of your plant. And if it rains or the sprinklers come on, you're going to have to put a new layer around. But if you can protect it for a while and just leave it there, the ants won't cross over the talcum powder. Talcum powder is so fine. And when you look at an ant under a microscope, it's kind of got a body that's like covered in armor. And the talcum powder gets under the shields or the protective layers on the body armor, on the shell, and it gets into the joints. And it annoys them like crazy. They get all frustrated and they won't cross over the talcum powder, and then they go away and they won't get onto your plant. So they won't be farming the scale on the plant. So yeah, really good question, actually. And I hope that my explanation as to how the relationship works between ants and scale explains things a little bit. Leah Verrill, hello, you're in Brisbane. My Grevillea superba has got a black trunk and branches. It's not sooty mold because it doesn't rub off. There is new growth on the bush, though. I think that's what you're saying. I suppose the question I'm going to say to you, Leah, is the plant healthy? Because sometimes, older stems can get quite dark. But if it is black, and sooty mold can get right into the stem, so that could have been that you had it before, and it's the residue of it. Sooty mold, by the way, is a fungus, and it's not actually problematic by itself. It's a byproduct of the relationship between ants and scale. Now, to take the story a little bit further, as I explained with Lynn's question, is the relationship between the two works like this. The ants protect the scale from predators, so they'll stop anything that would normally predate the scale and kill them off. In return, the scale emits this little sucrosy substance called honeydew, and the ants feed off that. It's sugary. And what happens is they get it on their body, they feed on it, they get it on their body, all over it. As they're walking around, moving from scale to scale across the plant, they're slowly spreading this honeydew over the surface. And that's where sooty mold comes in. Sooty mold is not harmful in any way. It's not eating the plant away at all. It's actually living off the sugary substance. And it just shows how prolific the ants and the scale can be. So the only downside to sooty mold is when it's really bad and it's covering over foliage, it stops the plant from photosynthesizing, from taking sunlight and turning it into energy. So what you've got to do is you've got to get rid of the ants and the scale. And if there's no ants and scale on that plant, there'll be no sooty mold. The sooty mold, you might see a little bit of residue on the trunk, but that's all you're going to see, because all the new growth should be perfectly green and healthy. Sounds very long-winded, I know, and you'll have to excuse me if I've lost you along the way, but this is something that we need to understand, because really our goal is to stop the ants from getting into the plants in this situation, because all those other knock-on effects are a byproduct of the ants farming scale. Consuelo, I hope I got that, Gonzalez in Sydney. Hello, you're joining us from YouTube, which is great. What season is good to plant azaleas, and what can I plant right now? Azaleas right now is when they should be going into the garden. It used to be such an incredibly popular plant, and garden centres about now would start filling up with quite literally thousands of them. They're not quite as popular as they used to be, and I'm not really sure why, because they're a beautiful plant, lovely flowers. They can be a little temperamental, and certainly in climates and places like Perth, where you have alkaline soils, they don't grow super well in alkaline soils, so you grow them in pots. But I've seen suburbs here where they're just in full sun, huge bushes, and when they come into flower, they're spectacular. So now is the time to be planting them, in short. Prue McDonald, due to the amount of rain that Brisbane has had, I've got ants nesting in my pots. How do you get rid of them and stop them from coming back? You've repotted plants several times this year. Don't repot them, Prue. The reason they're going to the pots is the pot soil is drier than the ground soil. So you're absolutely right. It's got to do with the rain. What happens with potting mix is often, because of the organics in there, it can dry out and it gets these dry pockets. And the ants will get in there and they'll create a big nest in there. They'll be living inside that pot because the soil's drier. So to get them to move on, the simple thing to do, wetting agent. Get a liquid wetting agent into a watering can and drench the pot. And once it's kind of soaked in, drench it again. And once it's soaked in, drench it again. 3 or 4 times, so that wetting agent is washed all the way through. So there are no dry pockets left inside the soil. And then keep the water up on your pot plants. The ants, you'll see immediately, the ants will sort of bubble to the surface. They're trying to save themselves from drowning, and they'll literally disappear. They'll move on. Just be conscious that they might move on into the house. Hopefully they'll move on to somewhere in the garden where they can find a dry spot under a tree or so. Generally, ants are not a bad thing to have. They do a lot of good. Now, Holly is cracking the whip. And she's saying, I've got 10 minutes to go. Got to smash through these last questions. Come on, Trevor, get your act together. Talia Lee, it's Talia T, actually. Hello. Loving the veggie-related questions and advice. I want to grow celery. Is it hard to grow? No, it's not. 2 things, Talia. This is really important. You've got to have a really good free-draining soil, sandy soil. And if you don't live in an environment where you've got it, if you can bring some sand in and mound it, so up off the ground, plant your celery into the top of it. It loves the sandy, free draining soil, and it has to be in full sun. Otherwise, it never forms the sort of the tight sort of body that you'd get. You get a very loose, leafy, spreading kind of version of celery, which you can still use, but yeah, it's not hard to grow. Now's the time to plant it. You do need good water with it as well. Sharon Turner, hello. I'm just having a look to see where you are. You're in the tropics of Australia. So you've asked, recommend a wetting agent to water small balcony plants in pots. So we're in the dry season in the north now, and you will see the pot plants starting to dry out really fast. It's a good question, Sharon. Now, my go-to personally, you can get wetting agents that are granular. You can get wetting agents that are liquid. You can get a wetting agent that actually has seaweed extract in it, which is really good for soil and plant root health. And that's what I'd go for. There's a product from Seasol. It's called Seasol Super Soil Soaker, I think it's called. It is their wetting agent, and it is a really good quality wetting agent. You mix it up in a watering can. You literally soak the soil. And as I said before, I would soak it once to the point where you see it bubbling up. I'd go and do it again. And if it's still bubbling after that, I'd do it a third time. And once you've done that, the water will be able to soak evenly through the soil into the roots, so the plants will remain healthy. And if you find that you're using a lot of water, then the reverse is that you can also mulch the top of the pots this time of the year. If you're up in Brizzy or further north, Darwin, or in the north of Western Australia, Broome and so on. So hopefully that helps. You are in a different season to us down in the south. Wendy Haywood, hello Mandurah. Mandurah is a great part of Western Australia. I've got black spots on my orchids. Been treating with triforine, not much change. Is there something else I should use that is safe? So interestingly enough, black spot on orchids is not always caused by a fungus. More often than not, it's actually caused by a bacteria called Pseudomonas that's actually carried in water. So more common to see it sort of in cooler conditions and also in very wet conditions, and we've not been in that, so it is unusual. But once you get black spots on the orchid leaves, it is really hard, and it's a general indication. It could be something wrong with the roots, or it could be that Pseudomonas that I just talked about. As far as Pseudomonas goes, you want to use something along the lines of copper oxychloride. So Kocide is probably the best treatment for that. That really clears off all those bacterial infections, and you can use Kocide on a lot of different things. It's very, very handy, and it's safe, pretty safe for frogs and insects. Not so good for snails. They don't like the copper. They have no tolerance for copper, so that's probably not such a bad thing necessarily. Irene Stridham, you've sent us some photos. I've got a lime tree at the front of the house. It's in full sun. I noticed the leaves are curled. Is it a problem? Now, this is a really common problem this time of the year. There's a couple of things going on here. The way the leaves are curled is indicating that you actually have trace element deficiency. So you need to get some trace elements, get them into the soil. The fact that they're curled up like that suggests that it's probably manganese that you're a little bit short of. But look, get trace elements or rock minerals, mix them in around the outside into the soil, wash it in. It will help the plant get over that. And it's not a big problem. There looks like there might be a little bit of that citrus leaf miner as well. So yeah, okay. We're going to keep rolling along. We've got 5 minutes to go. Let's have a look here. Can't stop smelling the plant. Oh, that's Holly. She's fallen in love with the snail creeper. I'll have to grow some for her. Fiona Goodrich, Hammersley in Perth. Okay. Help. What's the trick to keeping coconut ice, the Hypercalama augustifolia, alive? I keep buying them and they keep dying. I've purchased them as tube stock. When I see them, they grow for a bit and then they almost drop dead overnight. But you have one that's amazing. The obsession is sending you broke. Coconut ice is a beautiful plant, and Hypercalama is a lovely native, West Australian native plant. Grows exceptionally well as a general comment in soils that do not dry out too much. So it needs to have fairly regular or fairly consistent soil moisture level. Actually doesn't need huge amounts of water, just needs to be able to hold that moisture in around the roots. It does like it to be free draining as well. I'd say the one you've got's in the perfect spot, and the ones you're probably trying to grow are not in quite the right spot. It's a little bit of trial and error. Keep buying the tube stock and just popping into little spots. But take a look at the one that's doing really well and have a look at what the common factors for success are. You know, exposure, is it in full sun? Is it getting a little bit of shade? Is it protected from wind? What does the soil look like there compared to the other places? Hopefully there's a little bit of help in some of that advice that I can give you there. Anyway, Linda Bennett, hello. I'm not sure where you are, Linda, but this one I think I can help with anyway. Please advise how far apart do you plant standard roses that are 3 feet high? Well, it depends on the variety of rose. So a standard rose is just grafted on a rootstock, and then it grows a big ball. Now, some of the varieties, and I've actually got this example at home where I've got the Burgundy Iceberg. And they've grown into really big bushes like a normal iceberg rose would be. But they're pretty much at the point where they're almost touching each other now. And that's not the ideal scenario. You need to have a bit of a gap between them. But I'm about to prune them back pretty hard. We're only about a month away from pruning our roses. So I would suggest that if you were to give them maybe 500 or probably 700 mil to a metre between plants, it's the ideal scenario, because typically if it was an iceberg, it would grow a metre. If it's one of the more upright varieties, the hybrid teas, well, they don't grow quite as wide. They tend to be a little more upright. So it just depends on the variety, Linda. It should have a descriptor, though, to say how wide the plant gets. And you want to give yourself another 200 or 300 mils on the outside of that. Jenny Napier sent us some photos. Okay, I'm so disappointed in our oranges this year. Can't even salvage part of them because they haven't ripened fully. And fruit flies got to them. Oh, and they're dropping. This is you can see here, and you can see where the fruit flies stung them. Breaks your heart. I don't get fruit fly on my oranges, but I do get them on the mandarins, and it's getting really hard, Jeannie, to control fruit fly. There are some fruit fly sprays out there, and that is all I can suggest. You really want to do it about every 10 days. If there's any fruit on there that hasn't been stung, you can salvage it. The stuff that's actually been stung, you need to collect, pop it into some plastic bags and solarize it. So put it out in the sun when there is some sun and let it cook the fruit, and that'll cook the fruit fly at the same time. Or feed them to your chooks, which I do with any of my fruit fly affected fruit. They love it because they'll eat the grubs and it's good for them. Ellen Johns, I was wondering if it might be possible to have a renovation in my backyard considered for your show, please. Ellen, I'm really sorry. We don't do makeovers. It's just not what our format of program is. We'd love, we were just saying earlier on how many people request that. It's a big request that we get. But building gardens is a very expensive thing. It's a very expensive thing to film as well. And we've just, unless it's been a very special cause, charities, we've built a number of gardens for charities, and we did a whole series at one point on building gardens for schools, edible gardens, or kitchen gardens we call them, and putting kitchens in so that the kids could grow their own food and actually turn it into amazing meals. Chrissy at Henry's, hello, you sent us some photos. A tree outside my house is looking really different this autumn. It looks like it's dying. Can you maybe let me know any info? Let's have a look at those photos. Oh, yeah. It's not happy, and I think it's water stressed. I think that's what the problem is, but it's not going to die. I think it's going to recover as a consequence of the rainfall and increasing soil moisture levels now. Chrissy, you're in Western Australia, I know that. So this is a very common problem. The level of stress in garden plants at the moment is through the roof, and that's the mature ones. Everywhere I'm driving and looking, I'm seeing dead plants everywhere at present, but I don't think this one's going to die. I think it's going to recover, so you should be fine. Roger Ferguson, Southeast Queensland. We've got so many questions from Queensland this week, which is great. I've got bamboo growing in planter boxes next to a swimming pool in a small garden, drops its leaves in the pool making a mess. Could I please suggest an alternative? Unfortunately, Roger, you're going to have to get yourself some plastic plants because all plants will drop their leaves. Bamboos tend to drop their leaves quite prolifically when they're stressed. So when they dry out, you'll see a sudden drop of foliage. So just make sure you've got the moisture kept up to them. That's really the key, but it is quite natural for bamboos. They can be quite prolific in dropping their foliage. And there's not a lot you can do about it short of just changing to some different plants. If you wanted an alternative, something that's got sort of the golden canes, you could go for something like the golden cane palm, which is an alternative and will grow very well in planter boxes next to the swimming pool. I actually have that around the outside of my swimming pool. Troy Thomas, g'day, Troy. Hello. I've got succulents that keep getting a white fungus-looking thing, grows on the top and then makes its way down the plant. It completely kills them. What might it be and how do I stop it? You know what? I don't know, Troy. I've never seen that before. Do you think you could send us some photos? That would really help. All right, we are 1 minute past 10. I'm going to do one more question. Fiona Day, hello. When is it time for sweet peas? Typically, it is Anzac Day is the day you plant your sweet peas in Australia. That is all I can suggest for you. But now, you know, it's only a week ago, so now is the time to get them in. They'll grow really, really well because as the soil moisture levels increase, they're absolutely fantastic. Our question of the week, I reckon, is Lynn Menadew Ryan from the Gold Coast. And that was a great question, Lynn. Thank you very much. You had us sort of working our way through. It's a $50 gift voucher. And all you need to do is just private message us on Facebook with your email address, Lynn, and we will organise that for you as well. That's about it, I reckon, we've got for this week's show. I know we've missed some of your questions. I know there's so many of you asking so many questions, and I wish that I could answer them all today. But good news is, whilst I can't, I will be here next week, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions then with another live show. Of course, we've got the Garden Gurus this weekend on Channel 9, and I'm sure if you're watching 9 Live at the moment, you're seeing repeats of episodes as well. If you've got any questions at all, post them straight onto our Facebook page. Send us some photos. It really does help a lot. And if you're just looking for a great reference guide to gardening and you're looking for a little bit of help, check out our website. It is terrific. If you want to watch some of the shows or some of the stories, you can also go to our YouTube channel. That's thegardengurus.tv. Wow, episode 8 of The Garden Gurus is on Channel 9 tomorrow. Make sure you check it out. Thank you so much for joining us. There's a few familiar faces that are with us this week and some that I'm missing. So I hope that we get to see you next week when we do it all over again. Thanks very much. And a big thanks to Holly, who did an awesome job. All right, we'll see you next week.
Oh, hold on. I'll close